evening and realized this is what Fathul Mawsili did today. He was so happy that his slave girl that gave him this news, he said to her, I swear by the Almighty Allah, if you are speaking the truth, this is how my friend dealt with me today. Go, I free you for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is just once upon a time. You know, these are like fairy stories now. Once upon a time when people really believed in verses, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. When we really believed that all Muslims are brothers. When we believed in this, this is how the behavior of the Muslim brotherhood, of the Muslims was. Today, the reality is, and I feel very hurt when I utter words like this, today we will be lucky to put two brothers. You will not find the same love, not in two Muslim brothers, in two blood brothers that have drunk the same milk. Such is the condition of the ummah that you will be lucky if you can just make these two blood brothers sit on one sofa. Today, such is the condition of the ummah that one brother will be prepared to take the life of another, and we have heard hundreds of stories. Once upon a time, the value of Muslim blood was sacred. It was so sacred that it was more sacred than the holy Kaaba, the house of Allah, which is in Makkah al-Mukarramah. The blood of one Muslim was more sacred than the holy Kaaba. It was so sacred that our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was prepared to sacrifice his life. Allahu Akbar. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was prepared to sacrifice his life for the sake of the blood of one Muslim. Who can forget Hudaybiyah? Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam sees a dream that he's performing Umrah. When he relates this dream to the Sahaba, 1,400 Sahaba express their desire to perform Umrah with our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and they leave wearing their white garments with our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam for Makkah al-Mukarramah. Now when the Quraysh received the news that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is coming with 1,400 men, they already knew what happened when he came with 313. Fearing that he's coming for battle, the Quraysh make preparations. When he sallallahu alayhi wasallam gets to a place called Hudaybiyah, which is near Makkah, close to the boundaries of the Haram, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam sends Sayyidina Uthman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu to convey the message to the Quraysh that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam has not come to fight. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam has come for Umrah. Sayyidina Uthman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu goes and he conveys the message of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam to the leaders of the Quraysh that we have not come to fight, we have come to perform the Umrah. As he's conveying the message, Sayyidina Uthman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu is detained. And at the same time, a false rumor reaches our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Uthman Ghani has been killed. Uthman Ghani has been killed. Such was the value of the blood of one Muslim that though the Sahaba are in white garments in the state of Ihram, come to perform the Umrah. When he sallallahu alaihi wasallam receives this news, he gathers all 1,400 under a kaki tree. And he does not leave them. لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ يُبَايِعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ. Till they put their hands in the hands of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And each and every one of them pledges that we will not return till we take the revenge of the blood of Uthman. We will not return and we will fight till our last breaths. That was the value of the blood of a Muslim. Let us compare the value of the blood of a Muslim today with the value of the blood of a Muslim once upon a time. I ask you, what is the value of the blood of a Muslim today? Let me tell you. And again, I ask for forgiveness if these words hurt anyone, but this is the reality, and for how long can we brush this under the carpet? The value of the blood of the Muslim in this day and age It has no value. It has no value. The blood of animals in this day and age has more value than the blood of a Muslim, and it's held more sacred than the blood of a Muslim. And that is the reality. Now you may ask me, how come you have got to this foolish deduction? Let me tell you how I've got to this deduction. Kill a fox in this country. I'm not asking you to do this. It's wrong to kill animals without any valid reason, and fox hunting, thus in Islam, will not be permissible. But if you were to kill a fox in this country, tell me what would happen. What do people do for foxes and their blood? They go out on marches. They will block the roads. And they go out of their way to protect the blood and the life of a fox. This is how passionate people are for foxes. And there's nothing wrong with this. Kill a dog or a bird in this country without a valid reason and tell me what will happen. This is the value of the blood of animals in this country. And a Muslim? Never mind one. I just give you an example of one fox. You will hear Muslims, hundreds are being killed on a daily basis. When do you see anyone marching? When do you see anyone protesting? When do you see anyone going out of their way to protect the honor and the blood of a Muslim as they do for foxes and dogs? When do you see Muslims like me and you ever shedding a tear for the hundreds and thousands that are killed, mutilated and raped? This is how I have come to this deduction. They say, God knows whether this is the reality. Because for me it is difficult to accept this is the reality. They say there's 1 billion of us. You probably heard the same thing. I've been told many a time, we have 1 billion brothers and sisters. 1 billion brothers and sisters? If I had 10, nobody in Glasgow would look at me with an evil eye. Isn't that the score? If you were to have 10 brothers, on the street, not a single guy in Glasgow will look at you with an evil eye, because he knows what the score is. Yeah? And they tell me that I've got 1 billion brothers and sisters. But yet everybody looks at me with an evil eye. They say that never mind one home, one country, you have 50 plus countries. 50 plus. On top of that, they tell me, you're the richest thing going. The richest thing going. I was reading an article with regards to the sand in Saudi Arabia. There's an area in Saudi Arabia which is called Al-Rub'ul Khali, the quarter which is empty, and that's why it is called the quarter which is empty, because there's nothing there other than sand. I was reading an article with regards to that sand in Saudi Arabia, the person doing research on that sand. His conclusion was this, that if the Saudi government could find a way of transporting that sand is so good, that if the Saudi government could find a way of transporting that sand alone is worth trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Can you imagine? Mere yaar, sand. Something that you and I don't even class as a commodity. That is worth trillions and trillions of dollars. What would you say about the Saudi oil reserves? A recent report come out in America. America purchases $12 billion worth of oil every month. 12 billion. Some of the African countries, their budget is a few billion. 12 billion it purchases every month. And the majority of the oil that it purchases comes from the Muslim lands. And then there are all these other countries that purchase their oil from the same Muslim countries. How much wealth do you think that we, the Muslim nations, the Muslim people, have to our name? The human mind cannot comprehend the wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to the Muslims. Add to this all the natural resources, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed the Muslim countries. We have natural resources also in these countries. Gas. Yeah, but you know, all this means nothing. 1 billion Muslims, brothers and sisters, all this wealth, all this power. I just don't have the street cred. I'm worthless. All this means nothing, yet once upon a time, when we look at the apparent situation of the Muslim Ummah, apparently we had nothing, but in reality we had everything. Apparently, when it came to numbers, today we have 1 billion. You know, in those days, you could count those that said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. You could count them on your fingers. That's how many Muslims there were. When it came to resources, wealth, we didn't have anything. What did we have? Dates and water and nothing else. And this is what the Muslims would survive on. When it came to military resources, again, the Muslims had nothing. Such was the condition of the Muslims when it came to military resources, that, you know, these Bedouins of Arabia, as they were so called in those days, when they would go for battle, some of them had only one piece of cloth. Some of them, their clothes were torn and they had 10, 5 patches on their garments. Some of them didn't even have shoes on their feet. And some of them, instead of swords, are carrying sticks to fight the enemy. And when these Bedouins would advance to the battlefield, and the enemy on the other side, whether it's the Romans, the superpower of the time, or the Persians, the superpower of the time, were on the other side. And when they would see this band of Bedouins carrying sticks and no shoes on their feet, the enemy would start rejoicing. Before the battle has even begun, these are the people that we are going to fight. And before the battle begins, the enemy is already rejoicing that victory is ours. And now the battle begins. And they meet with the very same Bedouins in the battlefield. You know, the remarkable thing is, the smiles on the face of the enemy within minutes changes, disappears. The smiles disappear, and within minutes, tears of blood flow from the very same enemy from their eyes. And I'll give you a few examples. Battle of Mu'tah. The Muslims in this battle were 3,000. The Romans were 200,000 in this battle. 3,000 Muslims, and you had 200,000 Romans. What are the odds? That's a mathematician there. Alhamdulillah. Just under 70. One Muslim has to fight 70 Romans. 70 Romans, one guy. The likes of Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala participated in this battle. And when Abu Hurairah saw the Romans, he was shocked. You know, a few Muslims here and he can see on the other side. Thousands and thousands, and it goes to a distance of Romans. He himself narrates, he says, okay, their numbers were such, and the Romans had so much weapons, so many horses, which was the power of the time, the weapon of the time. They had so much gold and so much silk that Abu Hurairah says, these people could not be challenged or overpowered. Thabit ibn Aqram radiallahu ta'ala was a companion of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, a sahabi. And he saw Abu Hurairah in this condition that he's shocked. So he turned around to say, Abu Hurairah, okay, Abu Hurairah, are you amazed at what you see? Casually he says this to Abu Hurairah. Okay, Abu Hurairah, are you amazed at what you see? And Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala naturally says, okay, I'm shocked. And this is how he consoles Abu Hurairah. Oh Abu Hurairah, you were not with us in the battle of Badr. We Muslims do not conquer as a result of large numbers. This is how he consoles Abu Hurairah. You tell me, who could be consoled with words like this? When you have 200,000 people before you with swords and horses, full armor, who could be convinced and consoled with words like this? Naturally, logic says, the human mind, the intellect says, that never mind fighting, this 3,000 batch of Muslims will be wiped from the face of the earth within seconds. That's what logic says. You know, the remarkable thing is, Allah does not work according to logic. Everything works according to the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants it to. Never mind seconds. 6 days pass, and these 3,000 Muslim soldiers are still holding the ground. The likes of Khalid bin Walid was participating in this battle. The hadith which Imam al-Bukhari has recorded in his Sahih. Khalid bin Walid says, in that battle, I, Khalid, broke 9 swords. Can you imagine 9 swords? You and I don't even know what a sword looks like. You and I would probably find it difficult to pick up the sword with 2 hands. Khalid bin Walid is saying in that battle, he broke 9 swords. How can you break 9 swords? The only way you can break 9 swords is if you fight like a man. And you stay firm like a man. And you go through 1, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and you do not budge. This is the only way you can go through 9 swords. What did history record? Never mind holding the ground for 6 days. History recorded the Muslims were the ones that were victorious in that battle. And why not? When you had the likes of Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, who was also participating in that battle. After the death of Zayd ibn Haritha, Sayyidina Ja'far radiallahu ta'ala advances towards the enemy. Galloping on his horse, he brushes them aside as wind blows away dry leaves on a windy day. And when Sayyidina Ja'far sees now that his horse is giving him trouble, Sayyidina Ja'far jumps off the horse and he cuts off the leg, that he's not returning today. And now he's surrounded by the enemy. And they cut off his right arm. And he takes the flag and places it in his left. And then the Romans take off his left arm. He does not let the flag of Islam fall. He takes it in his bosom. And he keeps it there with blood flowing from his arms. And he does not let the flag drop till the Roman comes and cuts Ja'far into 2 pieces. Let me give you another two examples. The Battle of Zalaqah. Allama Makri writes that the Christians numbered 300,000 in this battle. 300,000. Both forces meet on the 12th of Rabiul Awwal on the field of Zalaqah. Now the Christians were under Alfonso VI, and the Muslim general was Yusuf bin Tashfin. Alfonso played a psychological trick on the Muslims. And he says to Yusuf, if Friday is your blessed day, Saturday for the Jews, and Sunday for the Christians, let us begin the battle on Monday. Muslims are simple people. Yusuf agreed. Friday, as Yusuf is leading the Jummah with his army units, Alfonso attacks the Muslims. He tricks the Muslims. The historian of the time, and this is the account of S.P. Scott, the historian of the time. This is what S.P. Scott writes. With regards to that battle, S.P. Scott writes, the numerical strength of the Christian forces was 3 times more than the Muslims. He further writes, the Christians were better equipped. They had more powerful horses. And they had more experience in fighting. In a nutshell, he was saying in every aspect the Christians were better. The same S.P. Scott now writes with regards to Muslim counterattack. And this is what he wrote. He wrote, when the Muslims counterattacked, he wrote, the Christians were smashed from all sides. And then he writes, the large numbers proved to be a negative factor. Their horses and camels began to run over them, and in utter confusion, they began to kill one another. Allama Makri writes, they were surrounded and majority were killed. A final example. Who can forget the battle for Spain? Tariq bin Ziyad comes with 7,000 Muslim soldiers. And he captures the area which is called today Gibraltar. Roderick of Spain advances with 100,000. Musa sends another 5,000 to help Tariq bin Ziyad. So the odds that we have is 12,000 against 100,000. And in this day and age, if you were to put these statistics forward to any person who has any knowledge of warfare, he will say that these 12,000 are committing suicide. They will be killed within a matter of seconds. Because their numbers, the ratio is nothing, and at the same time, they are fighting in a foreign land. This is what intellect will say. What did history actually record? Tariq burns the boats that they came on. And this is what he said to his Muslim brothers. In front of you is your enemy, and behind you is the ocean. The ocean is behind you, your enemy is in front of you. You choose your course of action. I do have nothing to say to you. You do what you want to do. The ocean's behind, you want to swim a few 100 miles and go back and run? Well, that's the way. And if you want to stay alive, then that's the way. The Muslims fought with such valor in that battle that history recorded the enemy melted before the Muslims like snow melts under the hot sun. But here, the examples I gave you were examples of the Muslim Ummah apparently having nothing. When it came to numbers, when it came to military might, when it came to military resources, when it came to wealth, the Ummah apparently had nothing, but in reality it had everything. Today, in the United Kingdom, people like you and I were influenced. And we're proud of this country that we live in. And why not? People from around the globe come to the universities of London, Oxford, Cambridge, and they study under the professors of this country. All around the globe, the Chinese, the Japanese, all around the globe, the Asians, the Arabs will come to universities in this country and they will study under the professors of this country. The medium of education today is English. If you want to become anything, then you have to know the English language. If you want to get anywhere when it comes to education, then you have to know the English language, or else you will not progress. I just want to remind you again of once upon a time. Once upon a time in this Europe that you and I live in today, the medium of education was not the English language. And some of you might be even shocked. This is how we have distanced ourselves from our roots, that we don't even know our basic history. In this Europe that you and I live today, the medium of education was none other than the language of the Quran and the language of Islam, the Arabic language in Europe. When sovereign princes and kings of Europe could not even write their names, when the barons and the so-called ladies of Europe could not even write one single word, such was the condition of the Islamic State and the Muslim Ummah, that every child in the Islamic State could read and write freely and with ease. When people in Europe and around the globe worshipped the earth and took this earth as a deity, the Muslims were so advanced that they had already discovered that the earth was round, and they were measuring the diameter and the circumference of this earth. When people in Europe and around the globe would worship water and the seas, the Muslims were so advanced that they were using the seas as a vast highway. When people around the globe took the storms and winds as mysterious forces, Muslims were so advanced that they were using these winds to turn their windmills. When people around the globe took the rivers as being something sacred, the Muslims were so advanced that they already had made canals and were using them for irrigation. Idrisi made a map of the world as early as the 12th century, in which he showed the source of the river Nile. It was discovered by the Europeans 700 years after. Allahu Akbar. In the 12th century, Idrisi makes a map of the world, and in it he shows the source of the river Nile, and it is discovered by the Europeans, which claim to be a very progressive society today and look down upon the Muslims and their contribution. Realize this 700 years after the Muslims. Al-Razi wrote Al-Hawi. It was the first encyclopedia of medical science up to that time. Ibn Sina, Avicenna, wrote Al-Qanun fi Tib, which